supporting Mbimbi. Stay under limit.
Hi, and welcome back to this channel. My name is Susan Silantoi. The aim of this channel is to offer information about how government works and why systems are set up the way they do. This is with the intention to understand the role that we play towards improving governance in this country. And through this, we can create a politically empowered generation. Alright, so we're currently doing a series on BBI, and in the last episode we explained about the process, just an introduction about what is BBI, how did we go about that, how did we get to where we are, and how are we going. I'd love it if you checked it out. So in the next couple of episodes we will be breaking down each of the recommendations in simple terms, and then we'll be giving a reason why for each recommendation according to the BBI, and then we will talk about what we have currently in terms of this constitution right now, and what the BBI is proposing and how that will look like. And then we just discuss what are the implications of that. And yeah, so please stick around to see that. So in this episode specifically, we will be talking about the amendments that have been proposed for the executive and the legislature, specifically in relation to the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, and Cabinet Ministers. So we'll start by talking about what is the actual recommendation. So in simple terms, BBI suggests that there should be a Prime Minister and 2 Prime Ministers. It also suggests that we should have a Leader of Opposition, and it also suggests that we should have cabinet ministers who can also be members of parliament. The BBI gives this reason for this specific recommendation. It says it's so that it can promote greater inclusivity and also mitigate the effects of the winner takes it all electoral formula. Okay, so nimesema vitu nyingi hapo, but we'll go step by step. So we're going to start with explaining the Leader of Opposition. So initially, before the 2010 constitution, we used to have a president and a vice president who was also a member of parliament. They were both also members of parliament. So if you remember, Kibaki was the president, but he was also the member of parliament for their constituency. If you look at when Kalonzo was the vice president, he was also a member of parliament for Mwingi North constituency. So this meant that if someone lost their elections, their presidential election, they would also still be a member of parliament somewhere. So they are vying for president, but also a member of parliament as well. If they lose, they probably will still have the member of parliament position. An example for this is when Uhuru lost the presidential election in 2002. He lost the presidential election, but he was still the member of parliament for Gatundu South constituency. So when the 2010 constitution came in, the executive was removed from parliament. This means that the president and the vice president did not sit in parliament at all because they didn't have seats. So for example, when Uhuru became the president in 2013 and also 2017, he was the president, but he was not also a member of parliament anywhere. Same case goes for Ruto. So he was the he was the deputy president, but he was not a member of parliament for any other constituency. So this would mean that when you lose your presidential election, you go home. You're done. So that is what they would refer to as the winner takes all electoral formula. And the BBI says that, this brought about a lot of competition, a lot of divisive elections, elections that would probably turn to be violent. So to deal with this, the BBI is proposing a number of things. So the first one it's proposing is the Leader of Opposition. So the Leader of Opposition, according to the BBI, would be the person who lost the presidential election. So for example, in the last election, Uhuru won the election, and then the person with the second highest votes was Raila, so he would become the leader of opposition, and he would sit in parliament and he would have a salary. The role of this person is not exactly very clear. However, he will be the third highest ranking person. Okay, so as we have said, this proposal is so that we can have a more inclusive government. Do you think this will lead to a more inclusive government structure, parliament? Let me know. Okay, so the second thing the BBI proposes is having a prime minister and 2 deputy prime ministers. So let's talk about the prime minister first. So the prime minister would ideally be already a member of parliament, and this person would be appointed by the president. So the president will pick a prime minister and then approved or confirmed by parliament. And this person will be from the party that has the majority number of seats in parliament. So how does that work? Let's take an example of the last election. So Uhuru and Ruto win the election under Jubilee Party. They become president and deputy president. So if ODM had the majority number of seats in parliament, then Uhuru would appoint a prime minister from ODM and then approved by, and then approved by parliament. So the BBI suggests that this would ensure that there's a more inclusive government, because there could be a chance that the prime minister could be from an opposition party. So it says, so it could be more inclusive, and it could also, kind of deal with the winner takes all election kind of thing. So this can pose a dilemma if we had the BBI during the last election. So if we take the case of the last election, Uhuru and Ruto win under Jubilee Party. Jubilee Party also has a majority in parliament. That means the prime minister would be chosen from Jubilee Party. And then you'd have Raila as the leader of opposition. So you would have an executive that has the president is from Jubilee Party, the prime minister is also from Jubilee Party. So that could cause a bit of a dilemma if we are working towards an inclusive government. So people have different opinions about that. I don't know what you think. I would love to hear what you think about that. So we've talked about the leader of opposition. We've talked about the prime minister. So now we're going to talk about the deputy prime ministers briefly. So the deputy prime ministers are going to be 2. And these 2 people are going to be chosen from amongst cabinet ministers. So you already have a cabinet. And then out of that cabinet, the president will appoint 2 deputy prime ministers. Okay, so we've talked about how those people are appointed. Let's talk about the role of the prime minister. So we've said the prime minister is appointed from the majority party in parliament, and his role is going to be several things, and 2 of the main ones are that he's going to lead government business in the National Assembly, and he's going to supervise functions by the prime minister and government departments. So this ideally would be done by the president. So now the prime minister will do that. Something that is important to note about this is that, first of all, this person who's going to be appointed has to be a member of parliament. Secondly, the prime minister is appointed by the president and can be dismissed by the president at will, like whenever he wants. The other thing is, so there's a procedure for how to appoint the prime minister. So the prime minister is picked based on a certain criteria by the president. He's confirmed by parliament, and then he becomes a prime minister. In case that doesn't happen, the BBI proposes that the president shall appoint a member who, in the president's opinion, is able to command the confidence of the National Assembly. So basically, it's just the president's choice. So that could pose a bit of a challenge in case of people who think that, some people will say this is giving the president too much power, so he can pick whoever he wants, whatever. There are different opinions about this, but that could, pose a little bit of a, it's something you should note.
Oh, is that so?
Okay, so we've talked about the prime minister, we've talked about the deputy prime ministers, and we've talked about the leader of opposition. So now we're getting into cabinet ministers. So initially in the past, cabinet ministers were also members of parliament. In fact, I think they had to be members of parliament. So you would have, in the case where, for example, Raila was a member of parliament for Langata constituency, but he was also the Minister for Roads and Public Works at the time. Uhuru was a member of parliament of Gatundu South constituency, but he was also the Minister of Finance. So when the new constitution came in, cabinet secretaries were intended to be technocrats, like people who are professionals and they are specialized in those fields or whatever, as opposed to having politicians as MPs. And the reason for this was so that to separate the two, and so that parliament would play a better role as a watchdog, because that's the role of parliament, to make sure that ministries and government departments and parastatals work the way they should. So that was why MPs stopped being ministers, they stopped being cabinet secretaries. So now the BBI proposes that members of parliament should also be cabinet ministers. And there are various reasons why that would be important. I mean, each of the two systems, what we have now and what the BBI is proposing, both have pros and cons. What are the implications of this? Obviously, if we have more positions, we are going to pay more. Whether someone says it's useful or not, that is always going to happen. We're going to pay more. Secondly, it's important to judge these recommendations based on the solution that the BBI is giving. So for example, having these positions, the BBI says that if we have these positions, then we will have greater inclusivity in government. So when we're looking at the recommendations, we're asking ourselves, does having these positions deal with the issues of inclusivity? That's the first question. And the second question is, does having a more inclusive government affect you personally? Of course it does. But do you think this way affects you in a better way? So do you think having more positions that will involve both opposition and government, do you think that benefits you? And that's the question we should be asking ourselves for every recommendation that we're going to be talking about. So let me know, do you think having a prime minister, having a leader of opposition will help us have more, let's say, peaceful elections? Will it help us have a less polarized election? Do you think that is a solution for this? Let me know. I want to know. If the answer is yes, I want to know why. So please let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation about this. Remember, in this channel, we're not telling you how to vote or what to vote for. In this channel, we're talking about the hows. We're asking questions that we understand and make the choices for ourselves. So yeah, so this has been our episode. Please let me know if you liked this episode and what did you think about it. Give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, as usual, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get to some good numbers so we can get to more people. And through this, we can raise a generation that is politically empowered. All right, thanks. See you next time. Bye.